You've already made this decision. You just don't know it yet. And the cost of not knowing it isn't confusion, it's compounding. Every day that you stay in what feels like indecision, your current identity is getting more expensive to maintain. The gap between who you are and who this decision requires you to be, that gap has a price, and you're paying for it every single day. Every productivity coach, every mentor, every decision-making framework is going to tell you one of two things. They're going to tell you to put a dot here, right side, left side. They're going to tell you to make a list of pros and cons, weigh the options. So this is the logic side, okay? Or on the other side, they're going to tell you to use your intuition. This is where you're being told to trust your gut. If it feels good, if it's aligned, then move forward. In both of these different decision-making frameworks, in terms of understanding the logic and the intuition, both of these are very sound and reliable tools. And here's the thing, neither of these explains why you already know what to do and still aren't moving. And nobody teaches you that the decision and the execution lives in two completely different operating systems, and that your identity controls one of them. And here's what's interesting. Your mind has already made the decision. Your identity just hasn't decided yet, which means every framework that you've used to figure out what to do was solving the wrong problem. You see, most people never learn to see the difference here between making a logical list of pros and cons or making the decision based pure on logic versus making a decision based off intuition and gut feeling and understanding what it is that you already know what to do and need to do, and then actually doing it. And I've worked with a lot of different entrepreneurs, founders, who have had every single signal point forward and they still can't move. They have full clarity, clear next steps, and still they're frozen. When I mapped this pattern out, it was an undeclared identity problem. So they kept thinking about the decision, analyzing it, and waiting to feel ready. What they were actually doing is letting the old identity make the call. And the system that I developed is the exact sequence I built from this pattern. And it's the one that I use with every high performer that I work with to move the decision from something that you're still processing into something that your identity has already absorbed. Here's exactly what we're covering today. So we're gonna go over the real decision. Now, this decision is super important because it's the reason why the choice in front of you was never about your career or a relationship or your business, and what this decision is actually asking you to choose. And so from here, we're going to go into the decision loop. This is the exact cycle that your internal operating system runs when you have full clarity and still don't move. You have clarity, you have hesitation, delay, frustration, and then it all repeats, and why it keeps running and resetting. And then the two pass. This is not good versus bad. It's not about being smart or not being reckless. We're going to map out what each one actually costs you, and the one cost that most people refuse to calculate. And then we're going to go into the timing myth. Big one here. This is what we're going to cover, why waiting to feel ready is the longest way to keep you stuck, and what actually creates readiness. And then finally, we're going to go over my framework here, the DECLARE system that I put together. And this is a acronym here. And these are 7 steps that move the decision from something that you're thinking about to something that your identity has already absorbed. And by the end of this, you're not going to feel like you have a decision to make. You're going to realize you've already made it. There's a specific identity pattern that creates this gap. I call it the almost founder. So this is a archetype that I've created. So it's the almost founder. They're always preparing. Okay? That's how I want you to think about it. They're always looking for reasons why not to launch, why not to get it going, why not to execute, because they need to get this little piece, or they need to make sure that everything's aligned perfectly before they can make a move. And this pattern is likely running somewhere in your life right now. You see, the almost founder has all the tools and resources. They're extremely competent. Like, they know everything about what they're trying to accomplish. They know exactly what they need to do, but they're just always just one more action or thing or piece of knowledge away from actually launching and moving. And here's what makes this pattern difficult to break. It doesn't look like avoidance from the inside. It looks like diligence, like responsibility, like doing the actual work that keeps the old identity intact. You see, preparation alone does not guarantee progress. The almost founder is not lazy. They're not undisciplined. They're running in maximum effort in a loop that never arrives. And the trap isn't preparation. The trap is using preparation as the reason the commitment can wait. And that trap has a very specific mechanism underneath, because the real reason why the almost founder doesn't move isn't the plan. It's the decision framework. You see, what this decision ultimately is here, we'll put decision and we'll put stars here, little star here, little star there. What this decision ultimately is, it's not what should I do. The real decision is who am I going to be? Notice the massive difference here. It's not about action, behavior, activity. It's about who am I going to be? And this comes with the I am. Okay? What does that look like? Because most people are stuck here. What should I do? What's the next strategy? What's the next move that's going to get me to my next destination? Even though they're likely running outdated code, which is going to keep them running into that same loop, in that same circle. Versus when they start here, who am I going to be? And then using the I am statement. And here's what's important for you to keep in mind through this in terms of making this decision. It's not about two different options of a decision. What you're ultimately choosing here is between versions of yourself. So this is very important. I want you to really get this ingrained in your mind. It's not about you having two different options of a choice between what action, what strategy, what move you're going to make. It's about what version of you is going to be showing up, is going to be who you want to be, which is going to lead and direct everything else. And here's what makes this interesting is that you've already made this decision internally. Like, if you really peel back the layers and you ask yourself, who do you want to be? Okay. And you come up with some I am statements. I am X, I am Y. I'm this type of person. Like, you already know who and what that is, what that looks like, okay, internally, but it hasn't been declared. And an undeclared decision doesn't disappear. It accumulates, it becomes weight. And why this feels heavy is because change equals loss of familiarity, of what's familiar to you, plus uncertainty, plus responsibility. You see, people assume that the weight of this decision is risk, essentially what they might lose if things go wrong. That's part of it, but it's not the deepest layer. The heaviest part of a decision isn't what it costs if you fail. It's what it costs if you succeed, because succeeding means releasing the identity that keeps you safe while you're preparing. That identity has a very compelling story. It says the new version isn't ready yet. It says one more thing needs to be in place. It says the timing isn't quite right. And that whole story that it tells itself is the nervous system protecting that identity that it's familiar with. It's not the decision that's scary. It's the version of you it requires. Think about it this way. Every cycle through the preparation loop is the decision. You just don't call it that because you're not aware that you're technically, unconsciously making that decision. You're not buying time by preparing. You're paying interest. Here's the thing about timing. There is no perfect time and just timing at all. Like thinking that you need the very precise moment, the stars aligning, the sun in a certain way, the moon, in a certain position, or whatever that may be. There's no perfect timing, okay? Very, very important. And the thing about this timing component here is that the person that's running this loop, they're waiting for them to become ready, to be ready. They're waiting for certainty, for that precise moment where finally it feels right. And here's what's really important about this is that readiness is not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct. You don't feel ready before the decision. You become ready because of it. Every version of you that became genuinely capable of something new was not capable before they moved. They became capable in the movement. You see, you're waiting for a feeling that can only be generated by doing the thing that you're waiting to feel ready for. This is a closed loop, and it can only be broken from the outside. Okay, so now I want to walk through the declare framework. So let me go ahead and erase the board here, and we'll walk through that. Okay, so declare. This is the identity decision system. And this is acronym here. Let's go over each one. So let's go with the D, define. Now, most people have defined the vision, the strategy, the picture of what they want to actually achieve, right? The outcome. What they haven't identified is the identity, which is the most important part. And it's not the person that is building towards the business, the success, the launch. It's the person who is already there, who's already successful, who's already had the vision and then executed and is currently in that timeline, that location, okay? That life that you want, right? And a lot of this has to do with really getting very specific with what that version of you looks like. What time do they get up in the morning? How do they eat in terms of, do they eat healthy food? Do they work out? Do they have very precise discipline routines? Okay. How much money do they make? All of these different, very specific criteria points and components of that identity are very important for you to outline and define. And so this whole thing requires you to step into that identity's perspective, okay? How do they think? How do they look at the world? How do they feel in terms of disappointment, uncertainty, okay? When things pop up that are, big roadblocks or little roadblocks, like how do they interpret those? Do they see challenges as opportunities? Do they see challenges as just things that happen and then, it's going to deter you, it's going to bring you down, it's a big, huge deal? Or do they see them as like, it is what it is, we're going to get through it, right? So very precisely outline this so that that version of you, what they look like, what they do, so that you can step into that. Next step, E, we want to eliminate. Here's the thing with eliminate. Most people that are going to be in this situation, what they're doing is they're keeping a backup version of themselves. It's where if they take this action and these execution steps and it doesn't get them the outcome and the result that they want, they can easily return to who they were. But the thing is, that backup is not security. It's what makes the commitment feel temporary. You cannot fully move into a new identity while maintaining an exit on the old one. So you want to eliminate the backup here. And the way that you can do this is truly, truly make a commitment to yourself that you're burning the bridge. Like even in your mind, look at your old identity and your new identity in like a bridge. So like there's a very popular bridge in California, San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, okay? Think of the bridge as the difference between your current identity and your new identity, and you want to burn that bridge because you don't ever want to go back, okay? Because what ends up happening is that once you start ultimately moving into your new identity, then you reach a new baseline. And so then your old identity never even ever comes back up because you've essentially burned that bridge. And so that's where you want to get to here with eliminating the old identity. Step 3, commit. So this is also super important here because most people's commitment is internal. It's verbal. It's in the plan. Real commitment is architectural. It changes where your time goes, where your money goes, what you say yes to. If the commitment hasn't changed your behavior, then it hasn't happened. And this is really important because commitment here is really about you taking daily steps, daily actions that your desired identity would be taking, right? That future version of you, those actions, those different types of behaviors, all of those need to be congruent and in line with that new version of yourself. Now, the way that I like to do this in terms of building up like your will is start with something super small, okay? Maybe about making sure you take out the garbage every Wednesday or whatever the day before that the garbage comes in the morning, right? Be very precise and specific on the time that you're going to actually do it. Put your alarm on, whatever you need to do to follow through so that every single time that alarm hits, you stop what you're doing and you take care of that no matter what, okay? Because over time, what that does, it builds up your confidence, your will, and your ability to actually do what you say that you're going to do. Step 4, we want to let go. Now, this is the step that most people resist because the old identity is known and it has a very compelling story about why the new identity isn't ready yet. Here's the thing, you cannot carry the old identity into the new reality. The new reality requires a nervous system that doesn't exist yet. And that nervous system only develops when the old one stops running decisions. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning what you built. It means stopping the old version from being the one who decides next. Step 5, you want to act immediately. Not when the plan is perfect, not when it's the right time, not when you feel ready, right now. And the important thing to keep in mind here is that you're not needing to take full-blown action and do it all at once. As I mentioned before, we want to take small micro actions that build up momentum and compound over time. And with this one in particular, it has to be something that the old identity would not do. One irreversible move, one thing that makes the commitment real in the external world. And that action is what collapses the loop. Step 6, we want to reinforce. You see, identity is not declared once. It's built through consistent behavioral evidence. Every action that the new identity would take is data that the new nervous system uses to update who you believe you are. Reinforce the decision, not with affirmation, with behavior. And I would even look to plan this out as much as you can in terms of this day, I'm going to take this action. That day, I'm going to take this other action. That is all reinforcing so that you can look at a calendar and you can see what days you're doing what. And then you see the months and the days compounding, right? That are moving you towards your actual future version of yourself, that identity that is the one taking these actions. And so you can track it and reinforce it so that you can see over time how much movement and compounding there's been. Last step, number 7, we want to expand. You see, the fit of a new identity doesn't arrive from the outside first. You will never feel like you fully belong in the new version before you inhabit it. The fit comes from actually inhabiting it. Expand into the identity, not toward it. And here's what I want to leave you with. Indecision is a decision, okay? Very important to keep in mind. So whether you realize it or not, by not choosing to do something, You're actually making a decision in terms of not doing it. And whether you decide to or not, that's a decision in and of itself. And so ultimately, you're not waiting for the right moment. What's been happening is that you've been protecting an identity that you no longer fit. The version of you that kept preparing, it served you. It kept you in the game long enough to develop what you needed. It's no longer the right tool. You've already made this decision. The internal version is done. What's left is the declaration. Because the version of you that exists on the other side of this doesn't start when the timing is perfect. They start when you say so.